back. It's Fouzia Saeed for our third part to this interview. Today, although we've covered some of the things with your work in PNCA and Lac
Yeah.
Bursa, I think we're going to go over today's the work that you did in UNDP as your general gender advisor.
Okay.
So, could you tell us just from the beginning, when did you join UNDP? And then we'll go from there.
Okay, fine. UNDP, I have had actually different stints, or I sometimes say lifetimes with them. The initial one with UNDP was quite early in my career, and the gender advisor one was more recent. It ended about 2 years ago. And there I was working as a gender advisor. Earlier, when I was with UNDP, I started up a gender program for them and developed 6 projects and a whole gender unit for them.
Okay, and what issues did you advise them on, and what projects did you take on under UNDP?
I was actually looking after the office culture, UNDP's staff sensitivity on gender issues, and their ability to look for gender issues within their own projects. So I was more into looking after people around and their activities and helping them to identify more vivid gender issues and also how to deal with each other because men and women are working together and within the context of Pakistani culture, what issues should we be sensitive to? And then I would cover harassment also and simple gender sensitivity,
I
those
believe,
kinds of things. Yes,
yeah, I believe you wrote a book on this, about sexual harassment, especially
yes,
during your experience in the UNDP. If you're
yes.
comfortable, could you tell us a story about that a little bit, elaborate a little bit?
Okay. The name of that book is Working with Sharks. So, as the name can express a little bit, my actually, this was my earlier stint, my earlier lifetime with UNDP, which was for many years. And I was new in my career at that time. And gradually, I started feeling that as a woman, I was not very comfortable because not my immediate boss, but there were several bosses there. Admin is separate, and there are other logistics, and then your programmatic team. And with the operation side, I started feeling that the guy who was in an important position, he would kind of put me down just as a woman, or make comments like, how about going for a dinner and this and that. So I felt uncomfortable, and I would try and avoid interaction. And then gradually I talked to one or two more women. Actually, they talked to me, and I was surprised to hear that other women also feel the same way. So I took a stand and I told one of those women that I will take a stand because he talks to me like that. So she was very surprised because I was at a relatively senior position at that time. I was head of my own department, my own unit. And then gradually things started rolling from there. I talked to my immediate boss, who was a Japanese. All international people work together in a UN office, and on and on. And then I started getting reactions because when this guy found out that I have informally complained, so he started uh, getting back at me in terms of not giving me a vehicle when I would need it, or not clearing my travel permissions on time. So gradually, when we started talking to other women, we realized that there were many women who felt harassed was not a common word at that time, but intimidated. And then we were like 200 people, I think, in the office or so, and we were 16 women, and we gradually, just talking to each other, we realized there were 11 who felt so strongly about it that they were willing to take on. to take a complaint. So then
Just
we, yes,
just to clarify, these are all Pakistani women?
not all. Most of them were Pakistani, because
Okay.
most of the women were Pakistan. There were only, I think, 16 in total. So
Okay.
one was a Dutch woman who came with us. One was British. So there were one was Japanese. The rest were Pakistani. So it was a big group, and then it took us a long time to read up on the procedures and get information as to how these cases are taken. And gradually we learned as we went along, and we filed a complaint in writing. And most of the women were very scared, because, in the Pakistani context, they know that if a guy is against you, he can do anything, bad mouth or whatever. So that process, eventually we did submit a complaint to the head of UNDP department at the time, who was a British person. And as we went along, we realized that there wasn't any a proper response. And this person was very close to the head of the UNDP office. And he was also very close to other senior officials. So we were new to this thing, and we gradually found our way. We sent a copy to New York, our head office, and then we got some advice from there, some advice from the head of the office person. And gradually we went on. There was one inquiry which was sent by, there is an office of legal issues in New York. So a team came from New York to do an initial, not an assessment, but finding out facts. And they went back, they wrote a report which we felt was very much in favor of the guy, because this person was very close to the high ups. He knew how to give a VIP treatment and extra benefits, etc. And then gradually then a proper lawyer was assigned to us, and then we made a formal case, and that went. And then it was almost like, we have our high court and supreme court. So in the UN system, they have their own judicial mechanism also, for staff. And then we heard that 3 out of us will be called to New York, and there will be a huge panel with many senior persons from other UN organizations also, but UNDP will run that. So then we were called there. I also went to New York. There were almost a week long um, inquiry or legal proceedings. And we had a lawyer that was assigned by UNDP, a very senior UNDP lawyer, very competent. So after all that, then this person was also called to New York for the committee to investigate, etc., etc. So it was a very long, I would say, torturous process. Torturous, I'm saying, just because the pressure was so much. The guy would be, in the same office, and we would be there too. And eventually we came back, and eventually we won the case, which was a very big breakthrough. And in Pakistan, many organizations had connected with us, and many women had connected with us. So they all were very happy that this was a precedent setting case. And as we were celebrating that we won the case, we decided that this was such a common practice in Pakistan, uh, sexual harassment at workplace. And we conducted a research study also, and then we decided to form an alliance with different organizations. We called it ASHA. Um, ASHA means hope, but it was also Alliance Against Sexual Harassment. And that is where my struggle that I mentioned earlier, that started. I left UNDP. Most of the women who were complainants, one after the other, they had to leave. Some were asked to leave, and some left with their own will. So we, whoever was a part of it, other organizations, we continued with our work against sexual harassment through ASHA. But that was the end of my UNDP stint. Or and then later, many years later, they asked me and they said, "You come and help us make the office environment a better place." So I was very happy with that. And I enjoyed that very much. I was a gender advisor and I did many training workshops and systems, developed systems, how any woman who's experiencing that could get help early on, or any man who is not comfortable about dealing with women, he can come and help, get some help. So it was very nice in that way.
Okay, I have a question here.
Yeah.
Uh, sexual harassment is a really broad term. Like,
Yeah.
even legally, I think it's difficult to define on what counts as sexual harassment, uh, whatnot. Can you explain some of the challenges that you dealt with, the legal issues that may have come up on what sort of favored uh, the perpetrator in this case?
Now, in the actual case or in my latest trouble?
In the actual case.
In the actual case, okay. In the actual case, the thing was that the policy of UNDP was not readily available for us. And I kept asking different supervisors of mine to get a copy, and I wouldn't get it. And eventually, I had to write to New York, and they sent me a copy. And I was very surprised to see that it was several years ago that they had passed a policy, UNDP itself. So, yes, it was not clear, and also it was not clear how the institution would help out. So, what we found was that this guy was getting all kinds of support from UNDP, and we didn't know how to get support. And we didn't know, for example, a lawyer was assigned to him right away because he asked for it, and we never knew what to do about the legal side of it. And then also, he would take off whenever he would want to, or make international calls also, etc. Whereas we women, we did not even had cell phones at the time. I think very few of us had cell phones and the ability to call international. And our bosses everywhere, all 11 of us, our bosses were becoming more and more strict with us. So it was very difficult for us to meet up and discuss our things, make our agenda. And we used to use our evening hours, and we used to meet in each other's homes and then have our meeting. So we did not know our rights, that this is.
Fouzia, yeah, I
Ji.
think one of the issues was that in the interest of keeping a good image of UNDP, the
Yes,
higher ups wanted to hush it up. Let's hush it up.
yes,
It will,
yes,
yeah.
yes. And that is why they became quite against us also. Yeah. And
Happens in every office also, because when
yeah,
a woman tries to raise a voice, they say, no, it will bring a bad image
yes,
to the office, and women will not be able to work in offices if they know this happens
yes,
there, and then
yes.
let's hush it up. So
And
that
in
way it was
general,
very courageous. Yeah.
there are myths about many such issues, that women cause these issues and then they complain about it. So we really saw, you asked about challenges, we really saw these myths in action. And people would say to our face that women, first they really smile and talk to these guys, and when they make passes, then they say, oh, this is harassment or intimidation. So these kinds of problems we did have, but very little support. We got little support, but UNDP, eventually the UN system did respond and helped us. But if we would have known that, if there was a gender advisor before, and we would have known that it was our right to investigate, or collect our documents and have meetings, then we would have operated differently.
Okay, I have a general, more broader question here. In Pakistan, when you address sexual harassment or you come forward with your own situation, there is a sort of line that you have to balance between, speaking out against it and, advocating for yourself versus potentially being shamed for it and being like, you probably were involved in this. How did you navigate that? How did you deal with that, which I think is one of the biggest issues in addressing sexual harassment in Pakistan?
Okay. I think that is something that you learn in the process. Yes, that is true. Any topic like this, I mean, sexual harassment is more linked to professional women or women at work or outside in the public space. But even in family systems, if there is battering or uh, that kind of an issue, women do feel embarrassed, and other people also feel embarrassed listening to that. So I for one, my strong point was that we were a group. So if I was alone, I probably would have faced more challenges and more put downs. So we were 11 women, three of them were not Pakistani, and the ages ranged between 55 to 24 or something. We were really a diverse group. So that gave us strength. The fact that we kept talking to each other, that gave me strength. There were a few friends in other UN organizations who would understand, men and women both, who would understand and would support or say a comment which is supportive. In general, I would say that support was rare because people always go into these myths. Why do women work with men if they cannot handle this or that? As if, it was our fault somehow that this happened. But anyway, that was a long process. And when we got the results, like from the New York hearing, that was very wonderful. Like I said, we got a great lawyer there, and the committee was also very just. And then the UNDP followed it up at the end very nicely. It is unfortunate that all of us pretty much had to leave. And in that way, the UN lost many good women, competent women. Um, but for future, at least they changed many practices.
Why did you have to leave?
Pardon me?
Why did you have to leave?
That was I left because it was my choice. Pretty much the management was getting very revengeful, and they were trying to shut down my projects because I had initiated many gender projects for women and men, and in this animosity or getting back like reaction, they were shutting down my projects which were really outstanding, and the attitude towards me was also not very good, and I felt that I could put my energies elsewhere, and then I wanted to take this whole movement I had also for anti sexual harassment. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, Fouzia, you're right. I want to point it out because there is a kind of culture of double speak in all UN agencies.
Mm.
They talk about these things, but when it comes to things happening at home, they
Yeah.
want to look the other way. So that way, it was challenging, and you took the risk that
Yeah.
whatever the consequences, I'm going to fight for it.
Mm.
But there were many other such issues on which nobody would speak.
Mm.
So I think that is needed. The advice to rebel as a gender advisor.
And then I always say that one is rebellion or taking a stand, and the other is that on one side we quickly have to learn also about the procedures and the
Yes.
rules and use those rules to get our rights.
That's most important because in your last talk also, I think
Mm.
it's very important for people to understand
Mm.
that if you want to fight, you need to
Mm.
learn the rules of game.
Yeah, yeah,
It is not just raising your voice, it is improving the quality of your voice,
yes, yes,
which makes it, that is very important. But
yes,
it is very demanding. You have to do so much work.
yes. And then in our last talk, we were talking about Pakistani setups and my experience in the cultural field, Lok Virsa and PNC. And later I was thinking that it'll be good if I give some tips to people who come over and try and help out Pakistani government or whichever their home country is, because such people are competent people are called in for help. And then what can be some tips that are useful for people, because it is very easy to get
Just for a
disillusioned.
minute,
So I will talk a little bit about my challenges in Lok Virsa and Pakistan National Council of the Arts. And those I will talk more with the objective of um, talking about tips so people do not get disillusioned very quickly, and they can have some coping techniques also.
very important, very important. Thank you.
So one whole set of problems, I was talking about Babu Giri the last time, but one set of problems also comes with people in high positions who are sometimes politicians, sometimes they are senior bureaucrats, but they are in high positions, so they can make life hell for you if they don't, if you don't do what they tell you to do. So at Lok Virsa, there was a cultural institution, not a government institution, but a business kind of a cultural institution right next door. And the head of that organization had become a senator. And so she then thought that she was very powerful, and this head of Lok Virsa, how come she doesn't listen to her? And she was into getting people hired, and they kept on. They had taken this land from Lok Virsa to set up their office. They would keep um, cropping more and more land, like extending this way and that way. And then, as the head of the organization, I was sorry, I was asked not to ask them for rent, and they had not paid rent for almost 4 or 5 years. So obviously it was my duty. So I used to write to them and say, pay your rents. And then I would say, you're extending on this side, and this is our museum, and we need this lawn for many activities. And now you're extending on that side, that is our official parking. And and then I realized that this lady started uh, bickering about it and talking to other politicians about me, that where has she come from and what does she think of herself, and like getting upset. And I talked to her and I said, listen, we both are women and we both are kind of open minded women, so we need to follow certain rules and certain things that we have agreed upon, and no need for animosity, you know. But no rents and no charges for utilities were paid. And eventually, I told them that a few of the shops, Lok Virsa shops, were rented out to them. They'd never paid rent. So I said, you better pay the rent till the first of this month, the next month, or else we will have to wrap up your stuff and send it over. So she talked to more influential politicians and got pressure on me, etc. When the date came, we wrapped up their things and we stored them in a portion. And she went out and she got a police case against me. This, I'm just saying, people who are in influential positions can go to that extent. And she has my name and other 4 senior directors of my institute, and she got arrest warrants, and the reason was trespassing. I mean, we come to office at Lok Virsa.
Yeah,
That is our office. We stay there the whole day. And
yeah.
she got the police to charge us on trespassing, and she had arrest warrants for us. So then the police called me, because I am an activist and have been in many different uh, movements. So the Islamabad is not a very big city. So Islamabad police knows me also. And so they called and they said, Dr. Saba, you better get either bail or something, because this woman is getting a lot of phone calls to our police station. So she was at that time using the speaker's office also, the parliamentary speaker's office, to make calls. And then the police called me and they said, well, we are leaving because now we are answerable to too many influential people and we have to come and arrest you. I said, listen, you are most welcome, come and arrest me. They said, what kind of talk is that? I said, no, seriously, if you want to come and arrest me, you come and arrest me. um, so the guys, my other directors at the institute, were very afraid. They said, what are you saying? Our kids and their kids, and this will be kind of, pasted on our record that we were put in jail. So I said, listen, if you want to go home for a day, you can. But I'm sitting here. If the police comes, they can arrest. I will do what I have to do. Um,
Right.
so anyway, the police came. I think that they did not have the courage to arrest me, or if they,
Warrants
if
or
they,
whatever. Yeah.
they had warrants.
Okay.
They had warrants. I explained to them what the situation was. So I think they saw through that. And I said,
Okay.
"Ki, nothing from her shop was like thrown away. It
Yeah.
is all in Lokversa storage. But the thing is, I showed them the contract. She's supposed to pay rent and she has not paid that for many years. So, as the head of the organization, I have to do something. I cannot just sit around. So anyway, they went back, and then many politicians called me from her party and from other parties, etc. I told them, that if she wants to throw me in jail or wherever in the lockup, that is fine, but I have to do what I have to do. And it was so funny that the stuff that we picked up, which I was also not aware what exactly is there, because they had a tea stall kind of a thing, tea stall and some chaat and golgappas and stuff. So they were like bags and bags full of these empty golgappas, little snack that you have, and packets of chips, potato chips,
Yeah.
and here is the senator who's putting all the pressure she can of senior politicians, and she's trying to save that little whatever little rent there was. Anyway, so that went on. We finally were able to talk to the police, and regardless of all the political pressure, they did listen to us. But this woman had made it her duty that wherever, at whatever platform she would go, she would talk against me, and she would say, what are these heads of institutions? What do they think of them? Etc. etc. Bad mouthing me a lot. But I learned that one of the tips that other people can also do is not go into a full confrontational zone with these people. When you see that there are people who are very pleased about their position, may it be political or whatever high position, then somehow either pulling some um common personalities in
Yeah.
to talk and figure out a solution, or making not a deal but some kind of not going directly, not confronting too
Find a
much.
middle rate, some kind of
Yeah,
understanding. Yeah.
yes, yes.
Right.
And that sometimes helps, because even though you can stand the pressures, but somehow these people take these things too long, for years they continually yak about you, and
Yeah. Yeah.
that can be problematic.
Yeah.
So
That's
that
very
is,
important. Yeah. One is to stand up,
yeah,
to hold your ground, and second
yes,
is to find a way to mediate and
yeah,
talk to them, find middle way. That's very important. But
yeah,
don't give up. Don't run
yes,
away. Yeah.
yes. So that they also have a face saving, you know. And sometimes I used to think, okay, if she backs out, not for her, but at other occasions, If this person backs out, what would be the embarrassment for him? And then you try and empty out some paths where they can reverse gear, go in reverse without losing their pace. And that is good. And another tip that I want to give to people who can get disillusioned is that always have backups.
Very important. Yeah.
Always
But
have backups. And backup can be in terms of program activity, in terms of strategy, in many ways. But as a as an activist, I have worked for so many years, and we have learned as an activist, it becomes like a second nature that you always have to have backups. If this path is blocked, then you have to quickly go back and go through another path. So that
you
helps also.
you are a warrior, you know the art of war. So yeah, these are very important tips. The reason people don't fight in Pakistan is because either they have full confrontation or they surrender.
Yeah, yeah,
They don't know that there is a way in between which is much more effective.
yes.
It brings results.
Uh,
And that,
it
yeah,
should not become my question of honor or the other person's question of
yeah,
honor.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like in
It's
PNC, I remember, I'm just giving one example because there are always, as a head of institution, you have to always think of program activities, your procedures, your hiring. There are many aspects. So one time I was at PNCA, I was starting new offices of PNCA in all the provinces because for me, provinces are very important. And I felt that just having an office in Islamabad was not good enough. So I was making efforts to go to different provinces and starting our offices there. So in GB in Gilgit, I talked to Gilgit's government, and they were very nice to offer me space and at least the initial facilities. So I was going to go with my team to Gilgit, and my minister at the time, he said, "I'll come, I'll come. I'm very interested in Gilgit, and I want to cut the ribbon." So I said, "Okay." So we went there, we set up things, and the day that he confirmed, I kept asking his staff. I said, "Okay, that day, can you shift that a little bit?" And they said, "No, no, no, that day is confirmed." So I said, because the thing is that there is no flight that day. That means I'll have to go by road, and it's a very long journey. So I will have to start 3 days in advance to be there and to prepare. They said, "No, that date is fixed." I said, "Okay." So then
okay.
I arranged, you know, but in my mind, I had this thing that whether, going to northern areas to GB, weather is always a question mark. So anyway, we went there, we arranged, we had to make a recording studio and whatnot, our office and everything. And the day I was going to launch, all the people, relevant people were invited. I got a call from my minister's team that we were going to take this flight and the flight did not come and the minister is not coming. So when will he come? We do not know. So just tell them it has been postponed. So now my thing was, it should not become a question of my honor. So I thought I should come up with a middle solution because all the senior people of GB's government were invited and everything was done. So I told his team, I said, "I will see if I could change it. But if not, just tell him, don't mind. I'll go ahead with it. And whenever he's coming, I'll do another program, to give him a lot of press coverage and all. But if
Right.
I could just get done with it, I will do it." So this I did, this message I sent just so that he doesn't get too angry that I went ahead. What I did was that I knew that the government of GB people would be very hesitant to come as a chief guest because, federal ministers have a different status.
Status. Yeah.
So I invited a very senior musician and a singer from GB. Somebody who almost had been forgotten. And
Yeah,
I am a big fan of these, senior
right.
artists. So when I talked to my other colleagues there, they said, "Oh, ma'am, forget it. He will never come. And he wouldn't even know how to get to Gilgit." And I said, "Leave that to me." So I talked to him and I said, Can you rent a car, etc." I could see the transport was a problem and it was very difficult for me to send a car and then bring it back. So I got his son's phone number. And I told his son, I am really a big fan of your father. And I think he should have been promoted, gotten more promotion and appreciation. And I want to bring him to Gilgit, but I want you to do this for your father. You take off from your work one day, you rent a car, or if you have your own car, you bring him here and you go back the next day. I will arrange for your night stay. So he was so happy. And he said, "Of course, ma'am, I will do that." I said, "Just do this for me and for your father." He said, "I will have to rent a car." I said, "Rent whatever car is necessary. Come over and we will put you up in Serena wherever you are comfortable. Just one day for your father." He said, "Fine." And the locals over there could not believe that I arranged his travel. And I told my own staff, I said, "You just arrange his picture." I also had his picture and other senior people, and make a huge banner to welcome him. We put that up. The officials there could not believe, the senior gu- uh, the ministry of officers,
Yeah,
and
bureaucrats. Yeah.
they said, "How do you know about him?" I said, "Forget about that. The thing is that he will be the first artist I will be recording in this new office, and
Yeah.
we will make albums, and don't you worry what all I would do with him and other people that you are forgetting." And it became such a successful event
Yeah.
because those people also of the provincial government, they realized that it was not just an event. It
So
was
it's brilliant
really,
because you made power irrelevant or the status
yeah.
irrelevant. Yeah.
And they realized that we really appreciate their seniors and their original music. And I was committed to take that music and record it and for their next generations. I mean, it just became a fabulous event. And I sent pictures to
Oh,
my minister also, and I said, "Whenever you come to this place, I commit to you that I will do a big music event and have full coverage of it." So,
great.
nobody
Yeah.
got mad, and my whole trip didn't get wasted. All the time I spent on the roads didn't get wasted.
I know this is brilliant. This is very good. You just
Yeah,
make power irrelevant, you know.
yeah,
You
yeah,
bring a musician, give him respect, and
yeah,
show them
yeah,
that there's no threat to your position or your
yes,
status. Whenever
yes,
you come, you will get it.
yeah.
But let's go. This is brilliant. Very good. Yeah.
And it is Pakistan National Council of the Arts. So it
Yeah.
also takes that message forward that we do respect and we totally cherish the artists. Yeah.
Yeah. This is great.
So this
So,
was just a
yeah.
point to say that always have backups and never think, "Oh my God, the world has, finished, or now it is, I really have to bounce back or something."
Be
But
flexible, have various options. As Amartya Sen said, that freedom is expanding the range of your options.
yes.
So
And always
yeah,
have face saving for them and face saving for yourself.
yeah, great.
Um, I just
Yes,
have one quick question here, and this is for both Professor Bakr and yourself. In Pakistan, when we talk about authority, we have to always give them this respect. Like, make sure they're not getting angry, make sure they're pampered, make sure
yeah,
they're constantly getting compliments. Even like I think like people at lesser positions require some kind of validation that they're an
yes,
authority. Why is this? I don't understand this like consistent concern that I need to be respected, I need to be validated.
Yeah.
Um, what's the issue behind all of this?
Well, I think one is that many people come to these posts or these positions thinking that is their life's achievement, you know, rather than thinking what are the functions they should be doing. They think it's a very big status symbol, and therefore the expectations are very high. Now, I will give you one other example where I kind of got stuck and it was very difficult to even come up with backups. This was the late part of my Lok Virsa job, where I was the head of Lok Virsa. And I have always wanted to do a book on our folk heritage, something that we could just hand out to guests or to anybody outside Pakistan. And if they say, what is your folk culture? So I can hand that book out. So it was just the last few months, and I worked with a lot of photographers, international also, and Pakistani photographers, and I had many people write portions of that book, and I myself wrote half of the chapters. Music of Pakistan, lifestyles of Pakistan, clothing of Pakistan, embroidery, and whatnot. I had many chapters. So when I prepared the dummy, I took it to my, we had the money to print it, but since I did not have a board meeting, I took it to my minister at that time. And I said, I want to print this book and I have very little time, but we do have the funds for it. And she looked at it and she said, nobody can give me a decent book in many of these institutions. So, yeah, this is a good idea. But I will have my own demands also. Now I come to that respect part. No? So, as soon as I came back to my office, her team called up and they said, "Okay, what picture do you want to use of the minister?" And I said that I did not ask for one. And they said, "We can send you three, four." And on the first page, the initial comments should be by the minister and there should be a colored photographs. So you send us options for initial comments and we are sending you the color pictures. I said, oh. And I did explain to them a little bit that a literary book is a different book. You know, you have preface, you have introduction, you have. This was all with pictures and about the culture, etc. Anyway, I could not slip away from it, and it had become a question of respect. So then I thought, well, you know, if I stick to my principles, then the thing is, she will just tell me not to print it. So rather than doing what they were expecting me to do a full page picture and a message, I couched it in a way that books sometimes carry. You know, if you have a preface, then sometimes you do have a picture, but not of a minister, but just somebody, some scholar. So I said, okay, send me the picture. Then I wrote her words in a sense that it became a preamble, a preface, and with a small size picture. I printed it. Oof. And that was difficult for me. But anyway, what it was at the very last end of my time there. And I had talked to the Foreign Affairs Ministry and the Foreign Office and say, you take this book from me, we will give you on a discount. Send it to all your embassies and this and that. And I had talked to UNESCO and some other institutions also and said, you have to get this book and spread it out. So they were all fine. But when the book came out and they saw the picture of the minister, even though it was not full page, they thought it was more of a political thing. And they all backed
Kills
out from
it kills the whole thing. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
because they said it is the ministry or the party that is trying to push themselves. And all those orders were refused. So that was bad. And when later I became the head of PNCA, I needed that book because we had taken film as a whole area. And in film, I had started classes for film production on the net. And we wanted to have this book as part of the course. And we
Right.
were trying to get it from low Cursa, and we were having some difficulty, even though they gave us some copies. So I wanted to do another edition. I thought I will update some of the writing also and add film component to it, because many of our film songs are used as folk songs, and many of our folk songs got their way into our films. So anyway, now I had a different minister, actually the secretary. So I went and talked to the secretary and I said, we have the money. We will do a second edition of this. Maybe we will change the name just a little bit so we can use it in future for our film courses. Okay, the secretary first said, oh, of course, this was a different political party. They said, oh, so you have put in the picture of your former minister. I said, listen, that was given to me by her. He said, yeah. You people try and get benefits and do these chamchagiris is the word he used. So I explained to him that I'm a very professional person and this was not like that. But if you want in the second edition, I can cut that out. I don't have to keep everything. So after going through it, and he said, it's a beautiful, beautiful book. And he said, okay, I will allow you to do a second edition because the content is pretty much the same. You already have permissions from all your photographers, but on one condition. One page will be my picture, and the second page will be of the new minister. I said, oh, God. And I was so surprised because he objected to my using of that picture so much. And he put me down for it. And then he said, one page for me, one for the minister. So then I said, you were just saying the opposite things to me. He said, yes, but the book is grand. Um, so I thought rather than coming up with some other uh, idea later, so I told him that, okay, I will not do a second edition, but I will try and do some book on film industry and try and make do with that. So he was
Okay.
disappointed, but he said okay. So I did not confront him, but I also did not want to prolong this and then have this as a carryover. So I
Yeah,
just yeah.
you're
But
right.
you get stuck with these things.
No, it's not easy to work with them. It's very, very difficult. You
Yeah.
are right. Because they know they have power. And then I would use the word they privatize the power,
Mm,
of the public office.
mm.
And they want to use it to promote themselves, although it doesn't benefit them so much,
Yeah.
but they
And
want
frankly,
others.
it is
Yeah,
a bit embarrassing. I always find that a little embarrassing because why would I want to have a picture somewhere in a book where I have not contributed? If it was my own book, of course, the author's picture is there, or the editor's, or
exactly.
there has to be some reason for it. But anyway, my point of telling you this story was that you can get stuck with respecting
Yeah,
people in high positions, and then you have to either come up with an alternative or back out in a respectful manner where it is not confrontational for them or for
yeah,
you.
yeah. Yeah, I think that's very important. Yeah, if you have to survive, then you have to find a way to do it in
Yes, yes.
non-confrontational way. Yeah, you're right.
I think we can wrap it up here. We talked about a lot of good things. If anyone has anything else to add, please do. But otherwise, I think this has been a very interesting, informative, and
Mm.
inspiring conversation.
Thank you. I would like to add one thing, that even though my examples were a bit negative, not very positive, but I think funny and and they are good to learn our lessons. But once in a while, you do find somebody who's very, I use the word wise here. Um, Competent is one thing, knowledgeable is another thing, experienced is another thing. But once in a while, you get to meet a person who is very wise. A
Yeah,
senior person, could be a politician, could be a bureaucrat, anybody. And I am a big fan of wise people also, because
right.
you can get a lot of lessons from them. So it is also a possibility that you would find somebody who's wise. And since we get different political parties and people keep changing, and there are people who have been in this business for a very long time, politics or something. So it is nice to find wise people. That is where I really harness and I say, okay, I'm going to learn from this person, which is a
Yeah,
joy. Yeah. But then you
yeah.
meet a lot of people like I've told you stories of.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. You find those people, and the wisdom is, as you know, some friend said long time ago, that you cut the cake in such a way that everybody thinks that I've got the biggest piece. So doing that is very challenging. But
Yes.
these are the people who help the system run, keep
Yeah.
running
Yeah.
because of such wise people. You're right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Fauzia. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank
Thank
Yeah,
you.
it
you.